Well, hello, guys and gals. I thank you so much for clicking on this video and choosing to watch. And I can tell you, based off of the response and the number of questions I got this week, that I'm actually going to break this Q&A video up into two parts. So this will be part one. We got part two coming up a little bit later. So make sure you check that one out. Smash that subscribe button if it's your first time ever checking out this channel. Follow me on Twitter if you want to engage with me in any type of conversation, sports, politics, life, what have you, and participate in these Q&As in the future. So with that said, let's go ahead and kick it off. Black Space 99, excuse me, Black Space 999er asks, more likely to be fired, Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, or Rick Spielman, Mike Zimmer? Man, that is a fantastic question. And I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm not sure. Because if the Bears were to somehow, some way slide into the back door of the playoffs, maybe as like a 7 seed, the McCaskey family, Ted Phillips especially, would be more likely to give them an extension than they would to fire them. But if this team started 5-1 and missed the playoffs, I'd have to feel very strongly that they both got to be shown the door. As with Nagy, you're talking, okay, 2018 was great, but you're heading on a 2-year path, a downward trajectory. You don't deserve a 4th year. And then you look at Pace, and you say, okay, you've had 6 years now. If you didn't get to the playoffs this year as a GM, that's one time in the playoffs in 6 years, no playoff victories, and you screwed up at the quarterback position in 2017, the most important position. You screwed it up. You have to be gone. But we're also dealing with the mediocrity of the McCaskey way and Ted Phillips, so anything is possible there. As far as Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer, I believe, didn't they, one or both of them, just get contract extensions? I certainly think it's possible, but I wouldn't be surprised if they play a little bit better this year. That, especially, I think Kirk Cousins has a big number on the cap next year, so he's likely to come back. It might not be the most appealing option if you go and fire your GM and your coach. I would say right now, to me, the more likely to be fired is Pace and Nagy. But I don't know that I feel that incredibly confident about that. Jack Duncan, thoughts on Isaiah Thomas saying that MJ is the 5th best player he ever played against? Did he actually say that? Like, I will take you at your word, Jack Duncan, and say, okay, Isaiah said that. He knows better. Now, maybe I'll be fair to him. Because while Isaiah gets a lot of crap from Jordan, Bulls fans, Pistons haters, the media, looking at me, you're like, well, dude's wearing the Jordan shirt. He's about to rail on Isaiah Thomas. No. Because I will say this, is that I remember when Isaiah Thomas was on the call, in the 97-98 season for NBC, and he was working the games with Costas because Marv Albert decided he wanted to do freaky things in hotels in women's underpants and lingerie. See, a lot of y'all don't remember that stuff. I remember Isaiah Thomas was incredibly fair to Michael and complimentary to Michael and almost went out of his way to bend over backwards to be glowing and gushing in his praise of Jordan. But incredibly fair he always was, and I will always respect that about him. It's one thing to be fair, but it's another thing to be fair with those that you have beef with or you have some ill will with or some rough feelings for. I'll give Isaiah this. I think 5th best he ever played against is crazy, but if he wanted to say that in his opinion, in the 80s, that Kareem, Magic, and Bird he thought were all 3 better, okay, that's fine. Maybe I'll give him that. That's his opinion. He played. It's his perspective. I disagree. I think he's wrong, but you probably expect me to come on here and totally blast him for saying so? No, at the 5th, I want to know who the 4th guy is. That's what I would like to know. But if he said he thought Kareem and Bird and Magic were all better, like, okay. And during Isaiah's peak in the 80s, it was Magic and Bird and Kareem. Jordan was the best player in the league starting about 88 and going forward. So I get it. Braden Smith, is Joe Flacco an elite backup quarterback? Man, I'll tell you what. That's the joke that will never die, and it's totally true. For 4 games in that 2012 season, in that playoff stretch, Joe Flacco was truly elite. Everything before that was average, slightly above or below average. Everything afterwards, slightly above, below, or right at average. But man, oh man, you talk about turning it on at the right time, that 4-game stretch in that playoff run, abso-freaking-lutely. Dude played elite. Now is he an elite backup? No, he stinks. He's done. Dave G. What are some free agents the Bulls should target this offseason, and should the Bulls keep the pick or trade it? I got to admit, I don't really know who's out there right now. And maybe this is just because of the timing of when the NBA season is ending and we're getting ready to go into the draft. I haven't paid much attention to who are prospective free agents. I don't remember this class setting up to be all that stellar, and that maybe it was another year down the road that it would be more stellar. I don't know that they should target any of them. I don't want them to trade for anybody. Like you hear the reports about Russell Westbrook. They want no business with him. No parts of him does you no good. So what? You can bring him in and he helps you get to the 7th seed in the East. Like who the hell wants to do that? No, and they should keep the pick unless they're trying to trade up to get somebody that they think is going to be an instant impact player, a big-time franchise player. But I don't think this is the type of draft where you really want to be in a position where you're trying to trade up. Like for the Bulls, it's either a wing or it's a point guard. And you say, well, they just drafted Kobe White, so is it illegal to have 2 point guards and maybe you can play Kobe off the ball some? Like, who the hell cares? That team stinks. So you need talent. Avdia. Or Hayes. What the hell? I'd be fine with either one of them. Avdia. Keys 10. Is the 2020 presidential election similar to the 1932 election? And who should be the next Speaker of the House and Minority Leader? It's funny how you put the Minority Leader. You know, I would say Mitch McConnell, but the Democrats are so dumb and incompetent that in this environment that should have led to a massive blue wave. Like even the hardest of hardcore conservatives or GOP people or even Trumpers would have to acknowledge, like, based off historical precedent, this should have been a massive blue wave election, and it was not. It was not. And that's because that party's really stupid. They run crappy candidates with crappy messaging, and they play to this middle ground that doesn't exist. Like the GOP, the Republicans play their cards so much better. They know what's red meat for their base, and they go after it. Yeah, I despise it, but that's what they go after. They're so much smarter when it comes to that. And they play to a base that frankly cares more about these issues in ways that are tangible and meaningful than liberals do. Although Mitch McConnell should have never been reelected. Like, a stupid on the Dems that trot out Amy McGrath. Like, who the hell's going to get inspired by her? But nonetheless, the larger point is you shouldn't have this asshole in Senate for 35 years. Who should be the minority leader in the Senate, though, assuming you're referencing the Dems? Anybody but Chuck Schumer. And who should be the Speaker of the House? Anybody but Nancy Pelosi. And the fact that those two are still in Congress, shame on the voters in those districts and states. Ridiculous. And was the 2020 presidential election similar to the 32 election? No. Because at least FDR was campaigning on something big, and he was trying something ambitious and aggressive and progressive. Biden's whole thing was unity and kumbaya. So no, I don't think it's similar to that in any way, shape, or form. Stephen Hilton, did the 49ers move on from Jimmy G? If yes, who would they trade for or seek in free agency? I don't see why they would keep him. Like, if you can get out from under him next year for very little dead cap, then I think you do it. And who would you trade for or seek in free agency? I would assume they'd be very heavy in the Sam Darnold sweepstakes. It would be my thought. Ibrahim Rao. As a fan of a National League team, do you want the DH to come to the NHN or the NL? The NHL. Imagine having a designated hitter in the NHL. Well, some teams I think kind of do. They got a guy that comes in there and does the old John Chaney goon it up. But it's the Hanson brothers. As a fan of the National League team, do you want the DH to come to the NL? If they bring it in, great. If they don't, that's fine too. I think it's stupid that each league has their own rule. I think it should be uniform, either one way or the other. I really don't have a ton of passion around it personally. Dane the Funky Homo Sapien. Killian Hayes or LaMelo Ball, the better point guard prospect for the Bulls. I'm going to go with Killian. I'm going to go with Killian. Josh, your thoughts on Steph Curry and his place among all-time point guards? I'd have to think a little bit about his place among all-time point guards, but my overall thoughts on him are, this is a guy that ended up going to smaller school at Davidson, became a bit of an NCAA tournament folk hero, was drafted 7th overall, certainly was drafted in a position where you wouldn't think that he's going to become a franchise player, all-star, league MVP, future Hall of Famer. The biggest thing about Steph Curry is, people can say the pros and cons about Chef Curry, one of the Splash Brothers, but he is a dude beyond question that changed the game of basketball. He changed the NBA. I can talk about LeBron and his greatness, but he didn't change the league. You can talk about Kobe and his greatness. He didn't change the league. Jordan and his greatness, he did change the league because everybody tried to be like Mike the next 2 decades plus. But it was Steph Curry that changed the league, not LeBron. LeBron's obviously the better player, but when you really think about it, that to me is Steph Curry's, maybe not such a great thing, but he changed the league. He changed the game. He absolutely did. Because now everybody wants to bombs away from 3 all the damn time. Joseph Moran, who would be Offensive Rookie of the Year for you in the NFL? I might have to look a little bit deeper at the numbers. I think the season goes along more and more. It's probably going to be Herbert. Right now, maybe it's Burrow. But you're probably banging out between those 2 right now. We still got a lot of season left to go. We got to see what Tua does the rest of the year. Who knows? Mike Schmidt, if there's a lockout for baseball, what do you think could happen? Not much good. Not much good. Games missed, players pissed, owners pissed, fans turned away even more than they already are. That's a sport right now that could very, very, very much ill afford to have any type of labor strife in the next year or 2. Instead, those dodos like Rob Manfred and those running the league should be focusing on how to get their message out there to younger fans to better appeal to younger fans, because the average age of their fans only goes up and up and up every year. I think it's something like 56 or 57 now. You keep going down this trajectory in 20 or 30 years, the average age of your fan is going to be cemetery. It's horrible. Dylan Schwartz, what do the next 2.5 months have in store for the U.S.? Probably not much different than what we've had right now, admittedly. A lot of political turmoil, a lot of talk about COVID, lots of locking down. Don't anticipate it getting better anytime soon. HMK 910, would Dabble Sweeney be a good NFL head coach? I could maybe see it. I think he'd have a better chance of being successful in the NFL than Nick Saban did. But yeah, it's really hard to project with some of these guys. It really, really is. But sometimes they can make that transition, and sometimes they absolutely cannot. George and Fulia, thoughts on Green Bay being the most loved NFL team in Romania? Really? Is that actually true, or are you just saying that because you're a Packers fan and you live in Romania? If that's true, I find that fascinating. Is that because after the toppling of Ceausescu in '89, as Romania got from under the red curtain and started to enjoy more freedoms, the mid-'90s came along, and here's Brett Favre and the Packers, would they be showing on Romanian state TV? I'm really curious. I want to know more about this. This fascinates me. That's interesting, though. I'm surprised it wouldn't be like the Cowboys or 49ers or somebody, but maybe Brett Favre just had that type of international appeal. But I do remember when Jordan retired in '93 because he had to go suit up to save the universe from the basketball-playing aliens called the Mob Stars. I believe Romania's state TV played Jordan games and Jordan highlights for a day, maybe a couple of days. So certainly could make sense. GM5 Collector is going to close us out by asking, for the love of God, please tell us that you're doing scouting reports for the NFL draft and NFL mock drafts. I need it and I want it. I really, really hope that I can do that next year. I really, really do. I don't know what the next several months will hold. We shall see. But I'm hopeful that I can get back a little more into that January to April rhythm and flow, because I've missed it the past couple of years, and it's shame on me for letting other distractions get in the way of that. Never let reality get in the way of your passions and your dreams. You know what I mean? So thank you guys for asking your questions. Again, this is part 1 of the Q&A. Make sure you check out part 2 pretty soon. I'll see you then.